Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to try something a bit different today because I've seen a few other YouTubers weighed in on this SimRacingStewards subreddit thing. Now, I'm going to be totally honest, I didn't know what Reddit was, so I was a bit apprehensive typing anything into Google because of various reasons. So I've managed to find the SimRacingStewards subreddit, and we're going to have a bash at trying to call whose fault it is, because we can. Well, that looks like it's good so far. To be fair, that looks like a typical Max Verstappen. Yeah, definitely. So, by this point, we'll just go back. Where are we? So, the Merc's entitled to space there because you can clearly see that the front wing is level with the rear wing, the rear wheel. So, by that point, you have to ask, where's the space? Now, the Red Bull can obviously stay there as long as he's left a car's width, which there is, so all is good so far. Now the Merc's in front here, so Mr. Red Bull here has two options. He can either back off a little bit because he knows the Merc's going to be slow going into the corner because he's not got optimal turn-in angle, so he's going to be very slow on exit. So he could just back off, do the old switchback and sod off into the distance, or they could opt to be a bit of a pleb and do what he did. So he needs to give a bit more room for that. That wasn't a Merc dive bomb. I'd put that one on the Red Bull because he had more options. The Merc didn't. Granted, he was putting himself in a daft position for slow apex and then obviously compromising him for this next corner. Smarts would have said, you stay behind and wait for the Merc to cock up. I'm putting that on Mr. Red Bull, unfortunately. So we're going to look at this one next, and Suspicious Shakes, I think the user is, has said that he's the green car that we're looking at now, and the guy in the black one back here has said that he should have given him more space. So we'll see what happens. At this point, it looks like he's in front, but we don't know what the speeds are, so I can see exactly what's going to happen here. Yeah. Yeah. So it was all good until that's pretty good, you know. Granted, personally I'd have been a bit further out over here, knowing that there's two cars going to be at the apex. So I'd have been a bit further across, and then at this point I'd be thinking the track turns to the right and I'm behind. What's the most sensible thing to do? Do I risk an accident by diving up the inside again, or do I back out and live to fight another lap? So by that point I'd be putting the brakes on, personally. You're behind the car in front. Yeah, you can argue that he's a little bit alongside, but most of motorsport is knowing to pick your battles. So yes, he should have given a bit more room, but it was a pretty daft attempt at trying to get down the inside. With the speed he was trying to take, he would have understeered that way anyway. So just there. At that point I would have braked, or at least lifted off, because that was the sensible thing to do. It's always better to survive a lap and go again than try that. he still had his foot pinned and he was behind. So for me, I'm not saying, you know, he should have given a bit more space. He shouldn't have necessarily dived for the apex like that, but he was taking the line, the racing line. I'd say this guy was off it. So, unfortunately, Mr. Blackforge, I'm saying that's your fault. So the next one, Daniel Flash says, is he in the wrong? He's the number 10 car, which is this little MX-5 here. So we'll have a look, shall we? It's hard to tell from that angle. I'd say no at that, to be fair. Although from that angle, it looks like 15's lost the car. Yeah, so initially, from here, it looks like the green car's just chopped into him, trying to cut him off. But, again, from here, it looks like very quickly it's been driven into. But from here, you can tell if you're putting that much left lock into a right hand turn, he ain't in control. So technically it's the guy in the green MX-5's fault because he lost control, but it wasn't malicious, so that's a racing incident. I don't care what anybody says about that one. You can see there, look, he's full left lock now. So he's trying to avoid it. But unfortunately, if you ain't got skills and your MX-5 pointing a bit too sharp with the opposite lock on, that was always going to happen. So he said, is this his fault? I mean, I'm guessing that they're different classes, because there's no way that the closing speed of that Lambo should have been that much to the Aston. So I'm guessing that's a GT4, that's a GT3, or GT3, GT2, whatever. It is only an assumption, but if you've got that much closing speed on a slower car on the straight, you know, this is at Monza, just coming up to the Ascari chicane. If you've got that amount of closing speed on a slower car, general rules are the faster car has to come off the racing line to get around the slower car. The slower car can't do anything unpredictable, so the slower car cannot come off the racing line, because the most predictable thing to do is stay on the racing line. I mean, there's all this track here, so why he's now turning right, I don't know. I mean, there's literally all of the track here, so that's defo Lambo man's fault. So this one looks like it's been recorded on a potato camera. So we're going to look at this one, and he's asking if he's at fault. I assume he's the guy that we're following here in the Aston. So we'll see what happens. So he's quicker going down the straight. He is in front right now. Right, one of two things is going to happen here. Either the Aston is going to take the normal racing line, you know, you can see the racing line by the different coloured bits of tarmac. They're going to take the real proper racing line, and the guy in the Ferrari is just overtaken, is just going to drive straight into the side of him for not braking. Or what I suspect is about to happen is the Aston Martin's braking quite early, and then he's going to turn off the racing line very early to try and cut off the Ferrari. Yeah. So it's clearly in front. So if it was me, by that point, I'd have backed off in the Ferrari. Because again, like I said earlier, it's all about living and surviving the next lap. However, I suspect that happened. I can't really see because we've only got this point of view, but what I suspect happened is the Ferrari saw that and backed out, but the Aston decided to brake a little bit harder and then turn in too early. So to take this corner properly, you don't want to be aiming for. He's pretty much turning straight here at this point, and don't want to be doing that until at least here. So he's turned in very early, which also leads me to believe that he's hit the brakes pretty early as well. So you can see there at the bottom of the screen that the Ferrari's brakes were definitely on. Um, so yeah, I'm going to say that's Aston, because if you look just before he actually turns left because he realises he's turned in too early. So sorry Aston, your fault. He's asking if he left space. Normally when that's asked, the answer is no, so we'll see what happens. Didn't actually see what happened then. Ah, there we go. I mean, did he just try and overtake mid-chicane? I mean, it was a bloody good overtake, to be fair. But what I suspect happened was he missed his braking point and went in a bit too fast and got a bit lucky by only having a slight tap. Again, if that happened in real life or on iRacing, that'd have ended in a massive accident, 2 people in the pits, and probably a protest being filed for being a bit of a pleb. So he's just applied the brakes here, probably a bit too late, and with how fast he catches up to the car on entry of this corner, I'd say he's fully on the brakes and it just ain't slowing down. He's got his steering wheel straight there, which to me says he's not trying to avoid that car enough. You see there, look, you can see the wall, you can see the car, and he straightens up to turn left. You can still see the car. Can't even miss it. The car is there. So I suspect he's chosen this in-car view for this part of the replay to hide the fact that from driver's view you can see that there's a great car there. So unfortunately Mr. Porsche, whilst it did look bloody cool, you did cause that one. So sorry mate. I'm going to leave it at that I think. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed me voicing opinion on some random crashes, and who knows, if there's enough of a interest in it, I'll do another one.